You've been ordering Jack Daniels as bourbon for years. It isn't. The Pappy Van Winkle you paid $120 for at that bar was probably fake. And the whiskey your father drank his whole life, someone in Tokyo owns it now. Every bottle has a story they never told you. Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels is not bourbon. The label says Tennessee whiskey. Bourbon has to meet federal standards: grain mix, barrel type, distillation proof. Jack meets all of them except one. Tennessee whiskey goes through the Lincoln County process, filtered through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal before it ever touches a barrel. That extra step disqualifies it from the bourbon category under Tennessee law. Jack Daniels has been the best-selling American whiskey in the world for decades. Most people who drink it think they're drinking bourbon. The company knows this and has never gone out of its way to correct it. Picture ordering Jack and Coke at a bar and telling someone you're drinking bourbon. You're not wrong about the taste. You are wrong about the category. The distillery is in Lynchburg, Tennessee, a dry county. You cannot buy Jack Daniels in the town where it's made. Jim Beam. Jim Beam is the best-selling bourbon in the world. Not in America, in the world. Sells more than any other bourbon in over 100 countries. Most Americans have no idea. They think of it as the cheap bottle at the back of the bar, the one you order when you're not being specific. In 2014, Japanese beverage company Suntory bought Jim Beam for $16 billion. The same company that makes Suntory whiskey, Orangina, and Pepsi products in Japan now owns the most American-sounding bourbon on the market. The Beam family still runs the distillery. Fred Noe, the great-grandson of Jim Beam himself, is the master distiller. So the family stayed. The ownership didn't. Picture raising a glass of Jim Beam thinking you're drinking American. The check goes to Osaka.
Next, the bourbon with a wax seal and a Japanese owner. Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is known for two things: the red wax seal dipped by hand on every bottle, and the taste. Weeded bourbon, softer than most, approachable. In 2013, demand outpaced supply, and the company announced they were lowering the alcohol content from 45% to 42% to stretch production. The backlash was immediate. Drinkers who'd been buying it for years felt cheated. Makers reversed the decision within 2 weeks. What most people still don't know is that Beam Suntory, the Japanese company that owns Jim Beam, also owns Maker's Mark. Bought it in 1981 before anyone was paying attention. The hand-dipped wax, the family-owned feel, the Kentucky heritage marketing, all of it is real production. The ownership is Tokyo. Picture buying Makers because it feels like a small American craft distillery. The parent company has $4 billion in annual revenue. Next, the bourbon made by a man who hasn't changed a thing in 60 years. Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey has had one master distiller for most of its modern history. Jimmy Russell started in 1954. He is still there. Over 70 years at the same distillery, same recipe, same approach. No consulting role, no honorary title, actively working. He's the longest tenured active master distiller in the world. The bourbon industry spent decades chasing trends. New finishes, experimental barrels, limited releases with celebrity names. Wild Turkey didn't. Same mash bill, same entry proof, same warehouses. While every other major brand was being bought by multinationals and repositioned for younger drinkers, Jimmy Russell kept making the same whiskey. Campari Group, an Italian company, owns Wild Turkey now. Jimmy Russell still shows up. Picture a 90-year-old man walking into a distillery he's worked at since Eisenhower was president. That's not a story, that's just Tuesday for him. Next, the whiskey that owns everything you've ever heard of. Johnnie Walker. Johnnie Walker is owned by Diageo. You may not know that name, but you know their products. Guinness, Tanqueray, Bailey's, Captain Morgan, Smirnoff, Kettle One, Don Julio, Lagavulin. Diageo owns over 200 alcohol brands and operates in 180 countries. It is the largest spirits company on earth. Johnnie Walker alone generates over $4 billion in annual revenue. The red label, black label, gold, platinum, blue, each positioned at a different price point to capture every level of the market simultaneously. One company, one whiskey brand, 5 price tiers. Blue Label runs $200 a bottle. The liquid inside costs roughly $30 to produce. The rest is packaging, positioning, and the belief that the label means something. Picture buying a bottle of Blue Label as a gift because it signals quality. You're buying a marketing decision made in London.
Next, the last major Scottish distillery still owned by the family that built it. Glenfiddich. Every major Scotch whiskey brand you can name has been bought by a multinational. Chivas Regal, Pernod Ricard, French. Macallan, Edrington, technically still Scottish, but investment-backed. Balvenie, Monkey Shoulder, Kinninvie, all William Grant & Sons, still family-owned. So is Glenfiddich. The Grant family has run it since William Grant built the distillery by hand with his sons in 1886. Every stone placed by family. Today, Glenfiddich is the best-selling single malt Scotch in the world and still privately held by the same family 5 generations later. No IPO, no acquisition, multiple offers refused. In an industry where every heritage brand eventually sells, they haven't. Picture walking into a bar and ordering the most popular single malt on earth. The profits go to a family in Scotland, not a boardroom in London or Tokyo. That's rarer than it sounds. Next, the Irish whiskey that isn't Irish. Jameson. Jameson is the best-selling Irish whiskey in the world. The bottle has a Dublin address. The brand story is Irish through and through. Founded 1780, John Jameson, centuries of tradition. The company that owns it is Pernod Ricard, French, headquartered in Paris. Pernod Ricard also owns Absolut, Chivas Regal, Beefeater, and Malibu. Jameson's actual distillery moved from Dublin to Middleton, County Cork in 1975. The original Dublin distillery is now a visitor center and museum. So the address on the bottle is a tourist attraction. The whiskey is made 160 miles away by a French corporation. None of this is hidden, it's all on their website. It's just not on the bottle. Picture ordering Jameson because it feels like drinking a piece of Irish history. The revenue goes to Paris. The history stays in Dublin as an exhibit. Next, the bourbon that sells for $5,000 and is probably fake. Pappy Van Winkle. Pappy Van Winkle is the most sought-after bourbon in America. A 23-year bottle retails for around $300. On the secondary market, it sells for $3,000 to $5,000. Restaurants charge $100 to $150 per pour. The Buffalo Trace Distillery produces roughly 7,000 cases a year. Demand is estimated at 500,000 cases. That gap created an industry. Counterfeit Pappy is everywhere. In 2013, thieves stole 65 cases directly from the Buffalo Trace warehouse. An inside job that took investigators 2 years to solve. Multiple studies of bottles sold at auction have found liquid that doesn't match the stated age or mash bill. If you've had Pappy at a bar, there's a reasonable chance it wasn't. The bartender may not have known either. Picture paying $120 for a pour of a bourbon that took 23 years to make. The odds it's real are not as high as the price suggests. Next, the whiskey that was illegal for 80 years and now sells at Walmart. Moonshine. Moonshine was illegal in America from 1920 to 1933 during Prohibition and remained heavily regulated after. For decades, it was made in hidden stills in Appalachian hollows, sold in mason jars, and responsible for blindness and death when made badly. Methanol, produced by amateur distillation errors, destroys the optic nerve. People died drinking bad moonshine. Then, in 2010, the legal moonshine market opened up. Brands like Old Smoky and Midnight Moon started selling clear, unaged corn whiskey in mason jars at every liquor store and eventually Walmart. Old Smoky is now the most visited distillery in America. The drink that killed people in back hollows and funded organized crime is a $500 million legal industry with gift shops and flavored varieties. Watermelon moonshine. Mango habanero moonshine. Picture your grandfather hiding a still from federal agents in 1955. His grandson buys the same thing at Target on a Tuesday. Next, the bourbon that almost vanished from America entirely. Prohibition Rye. Before Prohibition, rye whiskey was the dominant American spirit, more popular than bourbon. Every bar had it, every serious drinker knew it. Then Prohibition hit in 1920, and 13 years later when it ended, the rye distilleries were gone. Equipment sold, recipes lost, distillers dead or moved on. Bourbon recovered because Kentucky distilleries had infrastructure and capital. Rye didn't. By the 1980s, American rye whiskey was nearly extinct. Two brands kept it alive, Old Overholt and Rittenhouse. Then craft cocktail bars started reviving classic recipes in the 2000s. Manhattan, Old Fashioned, Sazerac, all originally rye drinks. Bartenders started asking for rye and couldn't find it. That demand pulled the category back from the edge. Today, rye is the fastest growing whiskey segment in America. The cocktail menus of Brooklyn bars saved a spirit that federal law nearly killed 100 years earlier. Picture ordering a Manhattan in 1985. The bartender would have had to improvise. Today, there are 200 American rye brands.